Research and Statistics. Today I have a very um, important topic that borders on a concept that puzzles a lot of researchers, postgraduate students, young researchers alike. And this borders on whether they need to calculate a sample size each time they conduct a research. Now, within the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you six scenarios where calculation of sample size does not apply. Stick with me as I unravel this in such a simplified way that you'll find it easy to navigate your research journey. Again, my name is Dr. Felix Ayodele Oyeleye. So let's get to it. First point. Number one, is important to you understand that there's nothing as perplexing as when you labor looking for what you don't really need in life. In the first instance, sample size calculation is not needed when you conduct a case report. Maybe you are doing case reports or case series in biomedical research. Because in case reports, the whole essence is to document conditions and responses that are actually real. Okay? For instance, as we have on the slide, maybe you want to conduct a research on the rare allergic reaction to COVID-19 vaccine, maybe in children. Now, in this case, all you want to do is to focus on the insight, the unique insight of that particular report. So, statistical inference is not required here. Hence, sample size calculation is not required. Now, the second scenario is when you conduct a pilot study in medical studies. Pilot study is the kind of study we conduct to establish the feasibility of the actual study itself. So, when you conduct a pilot study, the idea is that you are trying to build up, maybe you want to establish the feasibility of your tool or your protocol or the method or the techniques you are actually going to make use of in the main research before plunging into the actual research itself. So in this situation, you really don't need to calculate sample size. More often, pilot study is just a kind of small scale sort of study that you conduct with a very manageable amount of a sample to establish your hypothesis. Okay, you use it to develop hypothesis. So in that case, you really don't need to calculate sample size. Now, the third scenario is when you conduct a qualitative medical research. Qualitative medical research is the type of research that borders on behavioral studies. Maybe you are using questionnaire to elicit response from patients that have visited a particular hospital, cancer survivor patients. You want to check their experience after the chemotherapy. Now, in this scenario, what we are interested in is collating as many cancer patients that will voluntarily take interest in that particular study until we are satisfied with the number we have. Now, with this number, we can come up with a reasonable hypothesis. So, we rather talk of data saturation here rather than calculating sample size. So, data saturation is what guides the sampling in this type of research, the qualitative research, rather than calculating sample size. So in this case, you don't really need to bother yourself calculating sample size. How about the first scenario? That's when you do medical audits. Maybe you are conducting a retrospective review of what has happened in a particular hospital, in a particular clinic, in a particular medical center, health facility. For instance, maybe you want to collate the whole cases of appendectomy cases in the hospital from 2020 to 2023. In this case, you only want to capture a cohort of people within a space of time. In that case, you don't have to calculate sample size. You are only using the available data to arrive at a reasonable conclusion. So sample size determination is a no-no in this kind of situation. Now, what about the fifth scenario? Is when you use health registry or database to conduct a research. This is the type of research we describe as secondary data analysis. Now, when you do secondary data analysis, maybe you are analyzing the NHIS data on diabetes, on tuberculosis. All you need is to make use of the existing information before you to arrive at your finding, because you cannot really alter a second data. You are making use of what you have in the repository to actually arrive at your final. So as a researcher, you don't bother yourself about calculating sample size. How about the sixth scenario, which is the last one? Now, this is a case whereby you are conducting a simulation kind of study, maybe modeling study. You want to predict outcome using certain simulation or algorithm. Maybe, for instance, you want to do modeling of malaria spread, maybe in a particular population. And many a times, we don't even use data to conduct this kind of research. You want to design a model, and based on certain factor about the spread of the number of the malaria parasite, the plasmodium, you want to check if they lay their egg, if there are two of them, is they multiply. This is the possible way it will spread. This is more of using mathematical model to make deduction in research. So in this kind of scenario, you actually don't need calculating sample size. Now you can begin to appreciate that corporate organization, institution, many a times they hire lawyers to guide them, not necessarily because there are certain situations they cannot help to advocate for themselves, but they always need somebody like a lawyer. The same way as a researcher, you need a statistician to often guide you through difficult terrain when it comes to research. More importantly, in your data collection, in your data analysis, in your data presentation, a statistician is your sure plug to actually assist you. And that is why on this particular channel, Research and Statistical Guide, I am here to guide you as much as you make yourself available. You pay attention to me. Now, you see, one important thing I will appeal to you is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. This will encourage me to do more interesting videos like this that will actually guide you in your research journey. And this is the much we're going to have in this instance. Join me again for my next class on statistics.